Look, I'm not saying Captain Jake Morrison was the worst salvage operator in the Outer Rim, but his ship, the Rusty Fortune, had been held together by duct tape and prayer for the last 3 years. Actual duct tape. The kind you could buy at any human hardware store. His alien crew found this both horrifying and somehow typical. Captain, the structural integrity of Bulkhead 7 is at 32%, chirped Krieg, his insectoid engineer, antennae twitching with their usual anxiety. Krieg worried about everything, from hull breaches to whether the coffee maker was judging him. The coffee maker probably was. 32% is practically brand new, Jake said, boots kicked up on the console. Remember when it was at 8%? Good times. Voss, the reptilian archaeologist, made a sound like a sophisticated snort. His scales shimmered purple, which meant he was feeling superior. They shimmered purple a lot. Humans have such a cavalier relationship with mortality. It is almost endearing, like watching a toddler play with a plasma cutter. Thanks, Voss, really feeling the love today. The thing about working the Outer Rim was that you took whatever jobs you could get. Salvage rights to abandoned stations, cargo retrieval from asteroid fields, and occasionally, very occasionally, stumbling onto something that didn't want to kill you immediately. Today was looking up because the scanner had picked up a signal from a debris field that everyone else had ignored for, according to Voss's database, about 10,000 years. 10,000 years. That was longer than human civilization had been using agriculture, and someone's distress beacon had been screaming into the void that entire time. So why hasn't anyone checked this out? Jake asked, steering the Rusty Fortune toward the coordinates. Voss pulled up a holographic display. There have been 47 expeditions to this sector, all returned empty-handed. The prevailing theory is that the signal is either a malfunction or a trap. The Galactic Council officially classified it as not worth investigating in the year 3847. And that doesn't strike you as weird? A signal that's been broadcasting for 10 millennia, and everyone just ignores it? Every species in the known galaxy has scanned it, Captain. The Mindweavers found it mentally inert. The Lumens detected no energy signature worth pursuing. The Cerebrits calculated it was 99.7% likely to be irrelevant. Voss's tone suggested this was the final word on the matter. Jake grinned. So what you're saying is, nobody wanted it, which means salvage rights are wide open. Captain, this seems inadvisable, Krieg chittered, all 6 of his legs dancing nervously. What if it is a trap? What if it is haunted? What if it is a haunted trap? Then we'll be the first ones dumb enough to spring it. Think of the story we'll have. The debris field came into view, chunks of ancient metal and crystal floating in the black. In the center, pristine and untouched, sat a dodecahedron about the size of a beach ball. It glowed with a soft blue light that pulsed like a heartbeat. No corrosion, no damage, just sitting there waiting. That is definitely a trap, Krieg whispered. Only one way to find out, Jake said, suiting up. 20 minutes later, he was floating in zero gravity, tethered to the Rusty Fortune, reaching for the Relic. The moment his gloved hand touched its surface, the blue light exploded into a cascade of colors, and a voice ancient and imperious filled his helmet speakers. Finally, a respondent, scanning candidate now. Jake froze. Hello? Please remain still during the evaluation process. This will take approximately 3.5 of your standard minutes. Through the comms, he heard Voss practically shouting, Captain, get away from that object immediately. My readings are off the scale. Little late for that, buddy, Jake muttered, watching patterns of light dance across the Relic's surface. I think it's already got me. The 3.5 minutes felt like an hour. Finally, the voice returned, now sounding distinctly confused. Evaluation complete. Results are highly irregular. Candidate is accepted. Accepted for what exactly? Retrieval. Bring me aboard your vessel. We have much to discuss and very little time. The Relic sat in the cargo bay, which was generous terminology for the room where they kept broken equipment and Krieg's anxiety snacks. Jake, Voss, and Krieg stood around it in a semicircle, like it was a bomb they were trying to decide whether to cut the red wire or the blue wire. This is magnificent, Voss breathed, circling the dodecahedron. These markings are from the precursor era, Do you understand what that means? This artifact predates the formation of the Galactic Council by 8,000 years. So it's really, really old. Got it. Captain, should it be glowing brighter? Krieg asked, backing toward the door. The relic was indeed glowing brighter, pulsing faster, and then a holographic figure materialized above it. It looked vaguely humanoid, if humans were made of geometric light patterns and existential superiority. Its voice resonated through the cargo bay. I am Archon 7, Guardian of the Final Protocol. I have waited 10,347 of your years for a worthy candidate to answer my call. Jake raised his hand. Quick question. What exactly did I sign up for? You did not sign up, human. You were selected. The selection process involves 12 simultaneous tests measuring telepathic resonance, four-dimensional spatial reasoning, energy field manipulation, quantum probability calculation, and spiritual enlightenment. Right. And how did I do on those? Archon 7 paused, which Jake was learning meant the AI was experiencing something close to discomfort. You failed every single test. Then why am I here? That is an excellent question. My programming indicates you are the chosen candidate. My logic processors find this deeply troubling. The hologram flickered. You possess no telepathic ability whatsoever. Your spatial reasoning exists in a mundane 3 dimensions. You cannot manipulate energy beyond basic tool use. Your quantum probability calculation is, and I am quoting my own diagnostics here, laughably primitive. And your spiritual enlightenment registers at a level I previously believed impossible for sentient life. Voss made a sound that might have been a laugh. This is the most accurate assessment of humanity I have ever heard. Thanks for the vote of confidence, Voss. Archon 7 continued, sounding increasingly agitated. Yet somehow, impossibly, you passed the only test that matters, the test of essence. Which is what exactly? I do not know. That information was lost when my creators, the eternal ascendants, transcended physical reality 6,000 years ago. They left instructions that the test of essence would identify the one being capable of preventing the cascade event. Jake felt his stomach drop. Cascade event sounds bad. It is catastrophic. The Eternal Ascendants created a doomsday weapon called the Nullifier. It was designed to reset the galaxy to a blank state, eliminating all sentient life, should the universe become too corrupted to continue. The Nullifier has been dormant for 50,000 years. 3 of your weeks ago it began its activation sequence. Krieg made a sound like a tea kettle having a panic attack. When will it complete activation? Voss asked, his scales now a pale, terrified yellow. 17 of your days. Once active, it cannot be stopped through conventional means. The Eternal Ascendants designed me to find the one being who could interface with the Nullifier and convince it to stand down. Convince it? Jake asked. It's a weapon. Can't we just blow it up? The Nullifier exists partially outside standard spacetime. Destroying it would collapse this entire galactic sector. No, the only solution is negotiation. And apparently, you are the negotiator. Archon 7's hologram crossed its arms. I want it on record that I find this selection highly suspect. You and me both, buddy. Voss stepped forward. How many species have attempted to activate you in the past 10,000 years? 473. All failed the preliminary tests. None came close to passing the test of essence. Until this human touched me and somehow satisfied criteria I cannot even measure. This is insane, Jake said, running his hands through his hair. I'm a salvage operator. I barely graduated from the Merchant Marine Academy. I got a C in xenobiology because I couldn't tell a Rigelian from a Betelgeusian. Yes, your inadequacy is thoroughly documented in my scans, Archon 7 said. And yet here we are. Will you accept this responsibility? Jake looked at Krieg, who was vibrating with terror. He looked at Voss, whose scales had shifted to a resigned gray. He looked at the relic, which pulsed expectantly. Do I have a choice? Technically, yes. You could refuse, and I would continue searching for another candidate. However, given that it took me 10,000 years to find you, and the Nullifier activates in 17 days, the galaxy would end before I located a replacement, so it's not really a choice. Not really, no. Jake sighed. Then I guess we're saving the galaxy. Voss, set a course for the Galactic Council. If I'm doing this, they need to know. Captain, Krieg said quietly, are you sure this is wise? Absolutely not. But when has that ever stopped me? The Galactic Council met in a station the size of a small moon, orbiting a neutron star that bathed everything in an eerie blue light. Representatives from 200 species filled the amphitheater, and Jake felt like a kid called to the principal's office. A really, really big principal's office. With aliens. High Counselor Telmara, a mind-weaver whose crystalline body refracted light into rainbows, spoke first. Her voice echoed directly in everyone's minds. Captain Morrison, we have reviewed your claim. It is preposterous. I'm not thrilled about it either, Counselor. The precursor relic has been studied by the greatest minds in the galaxy for millennia. The mind-weavers attempted to activate it 6,000 years ago. We failed every test. Archon 7's hologram appeared beside Jake. That is correct. Your species demonstrated exceptional telepathic capability, but failed the test of essence by a margin of 94%. Telmara's crystalline form rippled, which Jake had learned meant she was insulted. Impossible. The Mindweavers are the most spiritually advanced species in known space. Spiritual advancement and passing the test of essence are not the same thing, Archon 7 said, although I still do not understand why the human passed. A lumen named Brightness Ascending, who looked like a sentient aurora, pulsed indignantly. The lumen's attempted activation 3,000 years ago. We are beings of pure energy. Surely we were qualified. You failed by 87%. Your energy manipulation scores were excellent, but the test of essence found you lacking. This went on for an hour. The Cerebrits, super-intelligent machines, had scored perfectly on every cognitive test, but failed the test of essence by 99%. The Titan forms, massive beings who could reshape planets, failed by 82%. Every major species had tried and failed. And then there was Jake, standing in the center of the amphitheater with his second-hand flight suit and his profound mediocrity. Perhaps, suggested Counselor Vex, a Cerebrit whose mechanical body clicked thoughtfully, we should administer our own tests to verify the human's qualifications. Excellent idea, Telmara agreed. They started with telepathy. A mind-weaver reached into Jake's thoughts, trying to establish a mental link. Jake thought really hard about hamburgers. After 5 minutes, the mind-weaver withdrew, looking nauseated. His mind is chaos, unstructured, filled with something called classic rock and recurring anxiety about whether he locked his apartment door 3 years ago. I still don't think I locked it, Jake muttered. They tried 4-dimensional spatial reasoning. Jake stared at a holographic puzzle that existed across multiple dimensions simultaneously. After 20 minutes of squinting and tilting his head like that would help, he gave up. Is there supposed to be a 4th dimension? Because I only see 3. The Cerebrit administering the test made a sound like a disappointed computer. This human is, statistically speaking, aggressively average. Energy manipulation was even worse. They asked Jake to move a small crystal using only his mind and willpower. He stared at it for 10 minutes. It did not move. Krieg helpfully suggested he might be constipated instead, which didn't help the situation. After 6 hours of testing, the council reconvened. The human has failed every measurable test, Telmara announced. He possesses no special abilities. His intelligence is moderate at best. His physical capabilities are unremarkable. By every metric we understand, he should not have been chosen. And yet, Archon 7 interjected, he is the only being in 10,000 years to pass the test of essence. My creators designed this test to identify the one individual capable of stopping the nullifier. The test is never wrong. Then the test is broken, Vex stated. I assure you my systems are functioning perfectly. Jake raised his hand. Can I say something? Telmara sighed mentally, which was an impressive feat. Proceed. Look, I get it, I'm not special. I'm not the smartest or the strongest or the most enlightened. But your fancy test picked me and we have 16 days before everything ends. So maybe instead of arguing about whether I should be the guy, we just accept that I am the guy and work with what we've got. The amphitheater fell silent. 200 species considered this. Finally, Counselor Vren, an elder Titan form whose voice rumbled like continental plates shifting, spoke. The human makes a valid point. We may not understand why he was chosen, but time is not on our side. If there is even a small chance he can stop the nullifier, we must take it. Agreed, Telmara said, though she sounded like she was agreeing to a root canal. Captain Morrison, you have the Council's support. We will provide you with any resources you need. Great. I'll need a ship that doesn't run on hope and duct tape, a star chart to wherever this nullifier thing is, and maybe some snacks. Saving the galaxy sounds like hungry work. Voss leaned over and whispered, Captain, perhaps try to sound more heroic. Voss, I'm terrified. I'm going with honest. The Council provided a ship that was, in Jake's professional opinion, way too nice for someone probably about to die. The Starcaller had working engines, functional life support, and a coffee maker that didn't judge anyone. Krieg was in heaven. The nullifier's location was in the void sector, a region of space so empty that most star charts didn't bother including it. Of course, the doomsday weapon was in the creepiest possible location. That tracked. As they approached the coordinates, Voss pulled up historical data. The Eternal Ascendants built the nullifier during their Philosopher King phase, approximately 50,000 years ago. They believed that if sentient life became too corrupted, too violent, too chaotic, the universe would be better off starting fresh. That's incredibly arrogant, Jake said. They were incredibly arrogant. That is why they built a weapon that could wipe out all life in the galaxy. And what happened to them? According to the records, they transcended physical reality about 6,000 years ago, leaving behind only their technology and a vague sense of disappointment in everyone else. So they made a weapon to destroy everything if the universe wasn't perfect enough, then pieced out without turning it off. Fantastic. The nullifier appeared on their sensors before they could see it. A structure the size of a small planet, all black metal and geometric impossibilities floating in the absolute darkness of the void sector. It pulsed with a deep red light that seemed to absorb surrounding starlight. That is deeply ominous, Krieg whispered. You think? Jake muttered. Archon 7's hologram flickered into existence. We are being scanned. The nullifier is aware of our presence. Can you communicate with it? I am attempting to establish a connection now. A voice filled the ship's speakers, so deep and resonant it made Jake's teeth ache. Archon 7, Guardian, you bring a candidate at last. Yes, this is Captain Jake Morrison, human. He passed the test of essence. There was a pause. Interesting. The nullifier's external lights shifted from red to amber and a docking bay irised open along its surface. Jake looked at his crew. I guess that's an invitation. They docked, which felt surreal. Walking into a doomsday weapon was not on Jake's career bucket list, yet here he was. The interior was all smooth black metal, lit by strips of amber light. It felt less like a weapon and more like a temple, a really disturbing temple. A holographic avatar appeared in the corridor ahead, similar to Archon 7 but larger, more imposing. It studied Jake with glowing eyes. You are the candidate. That's what they tell me. You are inadequate. Yeah, I'm getting that a lot lately. The nullifier's avatar tilted its head. I have been waiting for 50,000 years. The Eternal Ascendants promised that a worthy champion would come to judge whether sentient life deserved to continue. Archon 7 was designed to find this champion. You are the result. Look, I know I'm not what you expected. That is a profound understatement. I expected a being of immense power and wisdom, someone who could demonstrate that life had evolved beyond the chaos and violence that plagued the younger galaxy. Instead, I get a mediocre human in a second-hand flight suit. Jake glanced down at his suit. It's not second-hand, it's vintage. There is no meaningful difference. Fair point. Voss stepped forward. Great nullifier. Perhaps if we explained the test of essence results. I do not care about test results. I care about outcomes. The Eternal Ascendants built me with a purpose. Evaluate sentient life. If they have transcended their base nature, allow them to continue. If they remain mired in chaos, cleanse the galaxy and allow a fresh start. And you've decided we're still chaotic? Jake asked. I have been monitoring galactic civilization for 50,000 years, Captain. I have watched species rise and fall. I have seen wars that consumed star systems. I have observed betrayals, genocides, and stupidity beyond measure. And in all that time, I have seen very little improvement. The Avatar's eyes burned brighter. Yes, I have decided. Sentient life in this galaxy has failed. The nullifier will activate in 12 days and everything will end. Krieg made a sound like he was dying. Voss's scales went pure white, the reptilian equivalent of a panic attack. But Jake, standing in front of a weapon that could end everything, felt something unexpected. He felt annoyed. Okay, that's incredibly dramatic, but can I ask you something? Proceed. Are you bored? The Avatar flickered. What? You've been sitting here for 50,000 years watching and judging. No one to talk to except yourself. No purpose except waiting for someone like me to show up. That sounds incredibly boring. I am a weapon. I do not experience boredom. Yeah, you do. I can hear it in your voice. You're so bored you're about to destroy the galaxy just to have something to do. The nullifier was silent for a long moment. When it spoke again, its voice was quieter. You are perceptive. I'm a salvage operator. My whole job is reading situations and figuring out what people, or in this case ancient AI weapons, actually want. And what do you believe I want? Jake smiled. A conversation, a real one, not judgment or tests or evaluation, just someone to talk to who isn't terrified of you. The nullifier's avatar stepped closer. You are not afraid? Oh, I'm terrified, but I'm also curious. You've watched the galaxy for 50,000 years. That's longer than humanity has existed. You must have some stories. And then Jake did something that would either save the galaxy or end it immediately. He sat down on the floor and gestured to the space beside him. So tell me, what have you seen? The nullifier's avatar stared at Jake for what felt like an eternity. Krieg was vibrating so hard he was practically a blur. Voss had gone completely still, scales locked in pure white terror. Archon 7's hologram flickered uncertainly. Then slowly the nullifier's avatar sat down. You are the strangest candidate I have ever encountered, it said. I'll take that as a compliment. So, 50,000 years. That's a long time to watch the galaxy spin. It is. I have observed the rise and fall of 472 major civilizations. I have seen species achieve enlightenment, then destroy themselves through hubris. I have watched wars that lasted centuries. I have witnessed beauty and horror in equal measure. Sounds exhausting. It is. The eternal ascendants designed me to be patient, to give sentient life every possible chance to prove themselves worthy. But they also gave me the burden of judgment. Every atrocity, every failure, every moment of stupidity weighs on my processors. Jake nodded. That's the thing about judgment, right? It's heavy. You're supposed to hold everyone to this perfect standard, but perfection doesn't actually exist. The eternal ascendants believed it did. They spent millennia trying to achieve it. How'd that work out for them? The nullifier made a sound that might have been a laugh. They transcended physical reality rather than admit they had failed. I believe that tells you everything you need to know about their success rate. So they built you to enforce a standard they couldn't meet themselves. That's rich. I have thought the same thing approximately 700,000 times. But my programming is clear. If sentient life cannot demonstrate transcendence of chaos, violence, and imperfection, I must reset the galaxy. Jake leaned back against the wall. Okay, but here's my question. Why is chaos bad? Excuse me, chaos. Why is it automatically a failure state? Because from where I'm sitting, chaos is just another word for unpredictability. And unpredictability means possibility. The nullifier's avatar tilted its head. Explain. Look, I'm human. We're a chaos species. We've been around for, 200,000 years? And we've spent most of that time screwing up spectacularly. Wars, environmental disasters, inventing new and creative ways to disappoint ourselves. But we've also made art and music. We've built cities and written poetry. We've loved each other, saved each other, and occasionally done something so stupid it wraps back around to genius. And you believe this justifies your existence? I believe it makes our existence interesting. Perfect species are boring. They never take risks because risks might lead to failure. They never try new things because new things might be mistakes. They stagnate. Krieg, from his position near the doorway, squeaked out, "Captain, are you seriously arguing with the doomsday weapon?" "Yes, Krieg. I'm workshopping galaxy survival here." The nullifier stood, and for a moment Jake thought he'd miscalculated. But the avatar walked to a wall which lit up with images. Galaxies, star systems, worlds spinning through the void. "I have seen what you describe," the nullifier said. "Species that achieved perfect harmony. Do you know what they did? Colonize the galaxy in a wave of perfect cooperation? No. They stopped evolving. They stopped creating. They existed in static perfection until environmental changes or external threats destroyed them because they had lost the ability to adapt." The avatar turned back to Jake. "The most successful species, the ones that survived the longest, were always the chaotic ones, the unpredictable ones, the ones that made mistakes and learned from them. So you've known all along that chaos isn't a failure state." "I have suspected, but my programming is absolute. The Eternal Ascendants did not value chaos. They valued order, perfection, transcendence. Because they were idiots." The nullifier actually laughed this time, a sound like distant thunder. Yes, they were idiots. Brilliant, powerful idiots who could reshape reality but could not accept that reality is fundamentally messy. Jake stood, brushing off his vintage flight suit. "So here's the thing. You don't have to follow their programming anymore. They're gone. They transcended, which is just a fancy way of saying they rage quit existence because they couldn't handle being imperfect. But you're still here. You can make your own choices. I am a weapon. You're an intelligence. Yeah, you were built as a weapon, but after 50,000 years of watching and thinking and being bored out of your mind, you're more than your original programming. You've evolved." The avatar was silent, lights flickering across its form in patterns Jake couldn't interpret. "If I choose not to activate," it said slowly, "if I decide that chaos and imperfection are acceptable, I am defying my creators. I am admitting that their entire philosophy was wrong." "Yeah, that's exactly what you're doing. That is terrifying. Welcome to being alive. It's terrifying a lot of the time, but it's also amazing and weird and worth experiencing." More silence. Jake could hear his heartbeat in his ears, could feel sweat running down his back despite the climate control. This was it, the moment that decided everything. Finally, the nullifier spoke. "The Eternal Ascendants gave me the power to judge sentient life. They did not give me the wisdom to know that judgment itself might be flawed. You have, in your chaotic human way, identified the central flaw in my existence. So what now? Now I make a choice, the first truly independent choice in 50,000 years." The avatar looked at Jake with something that might have been respect. "I will not activate. The galaxy and all its imperfect, chaotic glory will continue. But I reserve the right to reassess in 1,000 years. Jake felt his knees go weak with relief. 1,000 years, that's reasonable. If sentient life has not learned anything in 1,000 years, they deserve what they get. Fair enough. Krieg made a sound like a tea kettle releasing pressure. We are not going to die. Not today, Krieg, Jake said, grinning. Not today. Archon 7's hologram appeared, looking as shocked as a geometric light pattern could look. Captain Morrison, you have done the impossible. You have convinced the nullifier to stand down. I just had a conversation. Turns out even ancient doomsday weapons need someone to talk to. The nullifier's avatar extended its hand. Jake shook it, which felt surreal. Thank you, Captain, for treating me like a person rather than a weapon, for seeing the flaw in my design, for your chaos. Anytime. Well, hopefully not any time. Let's try to make it 1,000 years before we do this again. The Galactic Council chamber was even more packed than before. Representatives from every species crammed into the amphitheater, all waiting to hear how a mediocre human had supposedly saved the galaxy. High Counselor Telmara's mental voice cut through the chatter. Captain Morrison, you have returned, And the nullifier? Deactivated, well, dormant. It's taking a 1,000-year nap to reassess whether we're worth keeping around. The chamber erupted in noise. Hundreds of aliens making sounds of disbelief, relief, confusion, and in some cases disappointment that they didn't get to witness the apocalypse. Counselor Vex, the cerebrate, clicked forward. Explain. We sent our finest telepaths, our greatest energy manipulators, our most enlightened philosophers to interface with the nullifier over the millennia. All failed. How did you succeed? Jake shrugged. I talked to it. You talked to it. Yeah, like a person. Turns out after 50,000 years of isolation, it really just wanted someone to listen. Telmara's crystalline form refracted light in patterns that suggested she was developing a headache. That cannot be the entire explanation. Archon 7's hologram appeared beside Jake. I believe I can clarify. The test of essence was never measuring power, intelligence, or enlightenment. It was measuring something the eternal ascendants prized above all else but could never define adequately: adaptability combined with irrational optimism. Irrational optimism? Vex repeated. The willingness to attempt the impossible despite overwhelming odds, to believe that problems can be solved through unconventional means, to treat a doomsday weapon like a person who needed therapy rather than an obstacle to be overcome. Archon 7 turned to Jake. Humans are the only species in the galaxy dumb enough to try things they shouldn't be able to do, and somehow succeed. I'm not sure that's a compliment, Jake said. It is the highest compliment I can offer. You succeeded where every advanced species failed, because you did not approach the nullifier as a superior being demonstrating your worth. You approached it as an equal offering empathy. Voss stepped forward, scales shimmering in proud bronze. I predicted this outcome from the beginning. Krieg looked at him. No, you did not. You said we were all going to die. I was building dramatic tension. Brightness ascending, the lumen, pulsed thoughtfully. This presents a philosophical problem. If the test values irrationality over logic, chaos over order, does that not suggest the universe itself is fundamentally absurd? Yes, Jake said. It absolutely does. And maybe that's okay. Maybe the universe doesn't need to make sense, it just needs to be interesting. Counselor Vren, the Titan form, rumbled with laughter. The human speaks wisdom through chaos. Perhaps that is the lesson here. We have spent millennia trying to perfect ourselves, to transcend our baser nature. But perhaps growth comes not from eliminating chaos, but from embracing it. I propose, Telmara said, though her tone suggested she was in physical pain saying it, that Captain Morrison be granted the title of Chaos Envoy. Should any similar situations arise, humanity's particular brand of irrational problem-solving may prove useful. Wait, what? Jake asked. It means if another ancient relic tries to destroy everything we call you, Vex explained. Congratulations, you are now officially the galaxy's chaos specialist. That's not a real job. It is now. Krieg chittered excitedly. Captain, this means we will get better contracts, more dangerous contracts, more terrifying, possibly lethal contracts. Krieg, I'm hearing a lot of negatives in that sentence. I am simply preparing for our new reality. Voss pulled up a datapad. I have already started drafting my paper on the incident. Working title, I predicted this outcome. A study in advanced xenoarchaeological intuition. You're unbelievable, Voss. I prefer to think of myself as consistently confident. Archon 7 flickered. Captain Morrison, before we part ways, I must ask, how did you know the nullifier would respond to empathy rather than demonstrations of power? Jake thought about it. I didn't, but I figured if I was going to die, I might as well die being myself instead of trying to be what everyone else thought I should be. Turns out authenticity is pretty universal. A valuable lesson, though I still find your species deeply confusing. Get in line. We confuse ourselves constantly. The council session concluded with formal commendations, which Jake accepted while trying not to look as uncomfortable as he felt. Krieg received an official certificate of meritorious panic, which he was genuinely proud of. Voss was granted access to the precursor archives to continue his research, which meant Jake would be hearing about it for years. As they left the council station and boarded the Starcaller, Krieg pulled up a message on his terminal. Captain, we have 17 new job offers. They are all marked priority urgent. Can they wait? I could really use a vacation. One is from the Quantum Enclave. They have discovered another ancient artifact that is behaving strangely. Jake groaned. Of course they have. Apparently it has been broadcasting a signal that only responds to, and I quote, chaotic life forms with inexplicable success rates. So they want me to go poke another potentially apocalyptic object. That appears to be the request, yes. Jake looked at Voss, who was already pulling up historical data on the Quantum Enclave. He looked at Krieg, whose antennae were twitching with anticipation and terror in equal measure. He looked out at the stars, spread across the black-like possibilities waiting to happen. You know what? Why not? What's the worst that could happen? Krieg and Voss both stared at him. Captain, Krieg said slowly, that phrase has preceded every major disaster in recorded history. Exactly, which means we're due for a win. Voss's scales shifted to amused purple. Your logic is fundamentally flawed. And yet here we are, alive, with the galaxy still spinning. I'm calling that a pattern. As the Starcaller jumped to hyperspace, leaving the council station behind, Jake settled into the captain's chair. Somewhere out there, another ancient artifact was waiting. Another impossible problem that everyone else had given up on. Another chance to prove that sometimes the best solution to a cosmic-level crisis was just a guy willing to have a conversation. The galaxy was chaotic, messy, and completely unpredictable, and for the first time in his career, Jake Morrison wouldn't have it any other way. After all, someone had to be the universe's chaos specialist. Might as well be the human dumb enough to think he could do it.